So to start, I'm going to talk about the panel-based CTI reports. And again, we really appreciate all of the feedback you guys have given, because this really was based off of feedback from users that essentially the CTI report that's here was not particularly useful for panel-based CTIs. They found it more helpful for our episodic CTIs. And therefore, what we did is sort of create and tweaked some of the reports that hopefully reflect some information and added sort of per member per month comparisons for our panel-based ones. So here, I'm actually going to go to a different time period just so we can get a better sense of things. So give the program a second. But you can see here, this is hopefully what you guys are familiar with when you look at the CTI report. The episodic ones kind of show some spending over time, months type of comparisons, and then some demographic data at the bottom. However, if we are looking at a panel-based one, I'm just going to pick a primary care panel-based one, first one I see. Give it a second. So you can kind of see new sets of reports. And what we tried to do was mimic some of the reports that are available in the MD-PCP reporting suite that some of you guys have are familiar with. I of course want to note that the reporting suites are different. Primarily, the Care Transformation Profiler is a non-PHI based report. So we of course had to take that into consideration, whereas the MD-PCP report does allow some bedding drill down. This of course will not, since we want to maintain it not having that PHI level detail. So again, if I select a panel CTI, you kind of see this new layout. The summary tab on the left sort of remains the same. You can see sort of your count by month, per member per month, admission counts, things like that. The graph here shows per member payments, the graph here says per member payments broken out by your type, your spend type. So of course, and also comparing baseline and performance. We've continued with the blue and the orange to help differentiate between that. This new graph over here is looking again at monthly payments over time. So you can kind of compare that to your baseline period and see if there's any fluctuation. Previously, there had been a lot of information that was done comparing a full 12 months and only like a couple months in the current performance year. So this hopefully gives you guys more of an apples to apples comparison. We also did a breakout count of payments and for beneficiaries with chronic conditions. Again, this is similar to the CCW flag, so you can kind of see here, based off of those, the count and payments. Again, if there's is an area that hopefully we've had a few questions on wanting to see some potential causes with variations within the population or specific disease states that you guys are focusing interventions on. This will again hopefully help show some of that. And then down here we have kept the demographic data the same as beforehand, so you can see a breakdown by age and also a breakdown by zip code down here. Oh, sorry, this is county. My apologies, county, not zip, down here for this area. So hopefully, again, this is something that you guys find more beneficial. You of course have the option to use the MAID to drill into PHI level detail for this. The intention is to get some trends information and to really help maybe direct some of the additional analysis questions that you guys are asking. When you're in this, of course, this is new and it is live now. So when you're in it, please take some time to look at it. We welcome feedback for it, questions, things like that. But again, hopefully you guys will find some benefits for that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the state summary tab then. And again, I'm going to change the time period to last or PY1. Okay, so we revised just this bottom part of the state summary report, the statewide savings estimate. So what you see up top here is the same as you hopefully are familiar with. Excuse me. So previously in this preliminary difference column, we had shown the cumulative sum of all savings and dissavings across CTIs, which while that number may be helpful, it does not accurately represent the policy for how savings are calculated. So now what you see is the preliminary difference column only shows the positive savings from the CTIs where savings were generated. So if one of your CTIs missed, I'm just going to pick on Meredith because they're up here. Let's say if one of their CTIs missed by 15 million, we will not see that negative 15 million included here. We only see the positive CTI savings. And what this does is now the bottom totals here, all the way at the bottom, is a much better representation of what you can expect in the final statewide reconciliation. So hopefully, as this updates month over month, it will give you sort of a more accurate snapshot of where you are. We do want to note that this this table does not incorporate minimum savings rate, so it's not going to be an exact replication of what the final numbers will be. But again, it hopefully better reflects what the policy decisions for savings were made. So that's hopefully what they would be able to see. Any questions here? Okay. Target price. So target price detail. This is a new tab that was added. And actually, I'll go back once more before I go to target price. So some of the reasoning behind this target price detail is you can see in the state summary, we have this preliminary aggregate target price. And there have been questions about, it's preliminary. How do I know if it's going to be an accurate representation of where the year ends, since it does incorporate some risk adjustment and things like that into it. So what we created was this new target price detail. And essentially it is going to be updated monthly, and it allows participants to track the change in their risk on a month over month basis. So in each of these, you have a baseline and performance column, just like we've kind of seen in other reports. Your baseline target price won't change, but again, this performance number will change when the CTP is updated each month. At the top here, you essentially will see the formula for the target price calculations, and each of these columns kind of show where the CTI is at for each of those different variables, and hopefully with simple math, you guys can plug those all in, and that's where we get this target price associated here. So it allows you guys to kind of see the breakdown of the math associated behind it. We do want to note that for episodes that are below the 11 volume threshold, and this is likely maybe for like 1 or 2 months for a new performance year, you're not going to be able to see a target price here, or it'll just reflect the baseline, since we do not want to put a target price here until we get sufficient volume that we are able to accurately risk adjust. Again, probably won't matter much, but I could see in the first couple months of PY3, again, these numbers probably mirroring, for smaller CTIs, mirroring the baseline. Laura, you asked a great question. You asked what is the definition of intercept? I actually do not know. Nate, I don't know if you're on the call, if you can speak to that. If not, I can get you an answer from HSCRC.
Yeah, so the intercept is essentially the fixed effect for the CTI. And in this case, again, the HSCRC is the best source for the details on what goes into it, because the fixed effects do vary a little bit depending on the thematic area of the CTI. But the easiest way to think about it is that's the component of the target price that's determined by your historical experience, based on the CTI definition that you've submitted for beneficiaries of that type that you encountered during the baseline period.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, and with all of these new reports, we just want to mention that you, of course, have your same filters at the top. So sometimes it just obviously makes it a little bit easier to see. So I'm just going to select, I don't know, it's not showing. Oh, because we're in I'm in the wrong area, but let me select a different one as a example. Here we go. Selecting Frederick, it just helps it cleaner for you all to see if you want to drill down into your area, but you of course have access to view everyone's target price and where they're at currently. Okay, so that is the update with target price. And the final new tab that we have is this final reconciliation tab. So this tab will show sort of the waterfall savings associated with this. It is intended to be the place where the final numbers appear. So for incomplete periods, as you can see here, where this is looking at PY2, it will not display any information in this tab. It also will not display information for periods where there is no true reconciliation. So for example, that estimate period that we had in the first part of 2021, this is an evaluation period only, so there wasn't a formal reconciliation. So you'll see that here. So for the time being, I will focus on PY1. So the intended workflow, or maybe what we would expect, is for you to go in and select your facility in the filter down. Again, it'll display it cleaner and hopefully will show sort of that waterfall savings effect that the policy has determined. So I am going to pick, sorry, I listed who were some good examples in this area. So I'm going to pick Frederick to start. And this is sort of a clean version. They had 3 CTIs, and basically what it's going to do, it's going to pull in your episodes for your CTI. It's going to pull in the total the total payments associated with the CTIs, and the resulting MSR. So for this one, 10,000 plus episodes, you have an MSR of 1.5. The total payments associated with those 10,000 episodes, and the final aggregate target price. This savings threshold column right here is just your MSR times your aggregate target price, and that's how you get your savings threshold. Again, with math, you can look at the savings or dis-savings, comparing your the difference of the final target price and the total payments. For this one, they have a net positive of 8.2 million. The surplus savings over here is looking at the savings that you have in this column minus the savings threshold. So in this case, that 8.2 leaves them with an additional 6.2 of surplus savings beyond the savings threshold that was needed for that. If we look at the next CTI down, this is a CTI that also had savings of 931,000. However, their savings threshold was 1.2. And what this does is it allows us to use the surplus savings from the CTI previously to basically cover missing that initial savings threshold, and thus their cumulative savings is added together. So we add that 8.2 to this 931, and you have 9.2 in cumulative savings here. And then finally, this last CTI did not produce any savings, actually just savings. So we would sort of stop here, and the total savings for Frederick is 9.204. So if I scroll down here and find Frederick, here we go. This matches up to this number. The total savings associated with this is 9.204. The statewide savings offset, which we show that breakdown in that state summary report at the bottom, is 3.08, and therefore we'd be expected to see a 6.1 million adjustment to the NPA for Frederick.
Jessica, this is Laura again. So in this example, it's kind of ranked nicely to show that waterfall effect for Frederick. I'm wondering, in the reconciliation tab, I was pulling this the other day, it didn't seem like it was necessarily ranked in that order in the downloadable report. Is this something that needs to be reconciled, or is it in fact ranked within that report to show that waterfall effect?
I wonder if the download, when you download it to Excel, if it lost some of that that ranking. I do know in the system, like when we select one of these, I'm going to select GBMC as well. It will automatically do that ranking. So that is something we can look into. Nate, you and I can talk about it and make a note if for some reason that changed on the export.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, and I can go back to the report, but it seemed when I was looking at the Excel the other day, I was trying to remember the waterfall policy, and it didn't seem like that translated to the report. So it's nice that we can go here and we know that it provides that. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. And I think what I want to do is just maybe walk through two more, since a lot of these different scenarios of like, okay, when do you stop when that waterfall effect? Hopefully will kind of help answer that. I will walk through GBMC's one. So again, we're looking at, they have what, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, so they have 6. Looking at their first one, they have a surplus saving, or sorry, they have a total savings of 1.4, which gives them 1.2 surplus of savings over their minimum. Their next CTI was also a positive savings, and they exceeded the minimum savings threshold. So again, we will add the 2, get to cumulative savings, and your surplus cumulative your cumulative surplus also does increase as well. So we continue down the line. We look at this next one. They also had savings and met their savings threshold. So for fairly simple math, add that to the cumulative savings, add the additional to the cumulative surplus. Those continue down. We look at their fourth one, I think I'm at now. This is where they do have savings. However, they did not meet the threshold that was required. But again, because they have banked in that cumulative surplus, they are able to continue adding on this savings to their cumulative. But you'll notice that their surplus does go down a little bit in order to cover the miss there. And then looking at this next one, sort of same situation. They have savings, did not meet the minimum here, but again, had enough surplus to cover that. So we can add the almost 15,000 in savings here, and they ended up just shy of 3. And then we get to this last one, which shows a negative or dis savings for this CTI. So we don't count this, and we would stop here. Again, I will scroll down to GBMC, which I thought I just saw. We'll put up here. So GBMC, again, we stopped at their 5th CTI. So they are, again, just shy of 3 million, which you can see reflected here. The statewide offset, again, the breakdown is in that state summary report. And they would expect a small MPA adjustment of negative 349,000. So that's sort of how the waterfall effect takes place. And then lastly, I will look at St. Agnes, I think was another good example. Okay, so St. Agnes had 3 CTIs, yep, and theirs ranked, when you rank them based off of their savings, their first CTI, they had a savings of 159,000, which did meet the savings threshold here. So we can continue on to the next one. Here they had a savings, did not miss the savings threshold, but you'll also notice that their cumulative surplus does not cover that. So this is why we actually stop at their first CTI here, since we would not be able to cover the total savings that would be required. And if I scroll up here, you can see again, we stopped at the first one, 159,000, and they have a larger negative 3.1 offset to their MPA. So those are a couple examples of how that waterfall would work. Again, essentially the idea here is that the policy was created for a CTI that had, that saved big, that did really well. It can boost a CTI that maybe barely missed, or even in certain cases missed by a lot, the minimum savings required, as long as they have the surplus to cover it. So yeah, I think those are the examples here. Please note that while you can see this in the CTP Live right now, there is one more month of data. So the April data is needed before sort of the final numbers are in, and that would be reflected and communicated through the HSCRC. So I think that's the end of the prepared materials that I had. Again, if anyone wants to come off of mute, I'm happy to take questions. We do have another session. Obviously, this is going to be a replica of this session, but feel free to tell your colleagues. We'll have another session on Thursday, April 27th at 3 p.m. and we'll be reviewing the same thing, but also one of the sessions will be posted on the CRISP website as well, and you guys can review that as needed for the future.
I have one final question for you. Looking at the MPA adjustments, understand that we haven't received final results, but it did have that calculation for each hospital, but I wasn't seeing like where I could pull like detail behind that calculation. It just had numbers. Is there somewhere in the CTP tool where it has that information on how that adjustment was calculated?
You're talking about this last column here, Laura?
What revenue they used and what percentage of Medicare payments?
So yes and no. So we have some of that breakdown in this state summary report, where you can see the actual dollar MPA and the percent of market. So that total percentage that was assigned to the hospital. Obviously the actual number is dependent on the state performance, so that's why the numbers are not like completely set there, but this is going to give you a better depiction and walk through that MPA number, and really we just roll that this number over into this final reconciliation over here, but that's the extent of the detail.
Okay.
So really you've got percentage in this state summary report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And just a note, in both the state summary and the final reconciliation, the next one. So for hospitals that participated jointly, so Holy Cross here, this is a good example. The way we display the MPA is a little bit funny because obviously MPA is at an individual hospital level. So what this will show is the performance for this group CTI of these two different hospitals of 2.5 in savings. None of that is assigned at the individual hospital level. So these numbers appear negative for each of these hospitals. You have to let the HSCRC know, I don't forget the exact timeline, but that you guys have to let the HSCRC know how you would like that MPA adjustment distributed across hospitals for those that participated jointly.
So in tab, then what you're saying is the MPA adjustment for joint CTIs has not been allocated yet to the hospital. It seemed like it reconciled, like you just kind of did the adjustment based on the statewide savings generated, but it seems like you're waiting until the end to see if those adjustments might be different because the hospitals might want to allocate them differently.
That's correct.
Okay.
So there's a default there, and I apologize, I don't know what default they have in there, but there is a default that can be changed and adjusted if hospitals choose to allocate differently. So yeah, the numbers still add up because essentially it's all getting distributed, but it's just a matter of if they would like to tweak it, that of course can be done. Okay. Well, thank you all. We appreciate your participation. And again, most of these reports kind of came from your guys' feedback. So please continue to let us know. And we're happy to let's say improve and add as needed. So thank you all and appreciate your time this morning.